Hello everybody and welcome to the first and probably last Gran Turismo 7 car predictions video of 2021. And as the title implies, I'm going to go through the cars from this year and last year that I believe have the best chance of making their way into GT7. Now, if you've been around on the channel for a while, you know how my predictions go. These will doubtless age like a fine bottle of semi-skimmed. But we move. I'm going to give my reasoning along the way, and without any further ado, let's get into our first car. Let's kick this one off then with a brief look into the past and the rollout of GT Sport, where the GTS was a real star of the show, featuring quite heavily in the second trailer, I believe, and of course, it became the cover car for GT Sport. And looking back to GT5, that car's predecessor, the SLS, was the cover car for that game. So the model lineage, if you will, definitely has a strong presence in the franchise over the years. Yes, the GTC and the GTR came out and were kind of ignored, but my assumption is that they were deemed not significant a change enough from the GTS that we have to be added in the game. And also they kind of came out mid-cycle, so it would have to be an update. But the AMG GT Black series is a far cry from the GTS that we already have in the game. It has a completely different engine, now has 720 horsepower, which is over 200 more than the GTS, and, as you might have noticed, a very extreme aero kit with the spoiler from the GT3 racing car. Unfortunately, it does also have the new AMG GT3 grille, which means it looks like a very angry fish, but it's definitely a significant car, especially so when you consider that it was briefly a Nürburgring lap record holder. Despite not being out yet, the Nissan Z Proto, or 400Z as it will be known when it goes on sale, seems like an obvious choice. We know Nissan and Polyphony have a pretty strong relationship. I mean, maybe not as strong now since Toyota have got into bed with them, but I think it's still pretty strong, and when they put out a trailer unveiling this car, some people were theorising that it was footage from GT7. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But they definitely do have a very storied history with the franchise. We've had the Nissan GTR Proto from way back in the day, and I do also think there's a pleasing synergy with the way the two companies operate. Namely the fact that they take an absolute eternity to churn out a new product. Yes, this car's predecessor, the 370Z, and especially the R35 GTR, were very impressive for their time, but times have moved on. Fire has been discovered. There are plenty of passionate BMW fanboys out there, and adding the new M4 would definitely be a decent way to serve them. I don't think they'll add the M3. Personally, I think it's better looking, but I think the M4, the competition in particular, is definitely the one that they would go for. Casting your minds back to GT6, the last generation M4 was added pretty swiftly in that game in an update not long after the car was unveiled, and this was back in the days where they were a lot more selective with the cars they added, because of course there were so many to begin with anyway. And I do see them shining a bit of a spotlight on the M4, and if visual modifications return, I definitely see the car getting a bit of love in that department, like some of those super premium cars from GT6 that had the more out there visual upgrades, like the Chevrolet El Camino, for instance. So, yeah, I think the M4 has a pretty strong chance. Are you proud of me? I spent over a minute talking about the car without even mentioning the grip. Oh, fuck. For those of you who understandably might think that the M4 is perhaps too new to be added into GT7, I give you this. Its bigger brother, the M8 Competition. This is another car that I can visualise being in a trailer and just implemented into the game as a whole. It's a hugely capable thing with over 600 horsepower and four-wheel drive. Although, with that being said, it would be cool to see Polyphony implement the car's drift mode, where you can turn the traction control off and then it decouples the rear axle, so you have a purely rear-wheel drive car. And a lot of cars are coming out with that system, so if there are any more that happen to have a drift mode that end up in the game, like the Ford Focus RS or the Mercedes A45 AMG, it would be a cool thing for them to implement, although I highly doubt they will. I was tempted to put this car's racing counterpart on the list, the M8 GTE, but there's a problem. It's bloody massive. I don't even think the increased computing power of the PS5 would be able to handle the sheer girth of the thing. So while it would be a nice addition to the Group 3 category, I don't think that one is going to happen. Another car that hasn't reached customers yet, but I think with the extensive testing that this thing has gone under, Polyphony could easily get the data that they need if they wanted to. And just why wouldn't you? Look at it. Who wouldn't want to spend ages poring over that, scanning the thing? And could you imagine doing the sound? Recording that 11,000 RPM 6.5 litre V12. That would be a dream job right there, surely. And although I doubt Polyphony care too much, it would be a good way to score points against Forza, who have used the Valkyrie's main rival, the Mercedes AMG Project 1, as their star for Horizon 5. There's the potential that they would add the AMR Pro track-only version of this car, and of course they were planning to enter Le Mans in the new hypercar class with it, but unfortunately they did pull out. Unlike you knew it was going to happen, you knew there was going to be a Toyota on this list, and I'm sure Toyota would jump at the chance to have their flagship hypercar in Gran Turismo. The GR Supersport is going to be a near 1,000 horsepower homologation special, calling back to the 90s era with the GT1. A car, for what it's worth, that I think will also find its way into GT7. It is worth noting that unfortunately the rules were changed and a homologation car was no longer needed per the requirements of the hypercar class, but I'm very much glad Toyota went ahead with it because there's a good chance we're going to get to experience this car and it's going to be awesome. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't include the racing version of this car, the GR010, but there are currently some funny things going on with licensing with World Endurance Championship cars and maybe even the Le Mans track, which maybe we might be subject to lose, unfortunately. Although I do hope not. Gran Turismo are a big name, so hopefully they can pull something out of the bag. And for our final car, this one is mainly based on a vibe. I could just easily picture this car in a trailer looking pretty, and with the GT Sport survey that came out a year or two ago now, it is apparent that they do have the intention to add some more current Ferraris. This one was not on the list. The Ferrari SF90 was on the list, and I do think that car's perhaps slightly more likely, but I've already predicted that, so the Rome it is. I still think it has a pretty decent chance. And that's going to be it for this video, so let me know any of your predictions and what you think of mine. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.